Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Power of Meaning. And in this episode, we're going to be discussing the incredible, the famous Socrates of Athens, who was said to be the wisest man in the whole world. And this video, we're going to discuss a lesser known fact about Socrates, and that is that he was an absolute badass. Okay, now before we go on, guys, I just want to thank you for all your support and all your likes, shares and subscribes. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please feel free to hit like, share and subscribe to this video. And with that said, we'll crack on. Now, what's interesting about Plato's works is that Socrates is the main interlocutor, the main character for the whole library of Plato's works. And every single one of Plato's books, and there are many attributed to Plato, are each in their own right timeless masterpieces of just literature, first of all, and second of all, breathtakingly astonishing works of philosophy. Alfred North Whitehead famously said, I think it was him, said that basically all of Western philosophy is a footnote to Plato, to give you some indication of what we're talking about. Now, we're going to be discussing the Symposium. I'm going to read from the Symposium, and just to set the scene for you guys, Socrates is having dinner with some aristocratic Athenian friends of his. They've all been asked to give a speech on love. Socrates has just given his speech. Amazing speeches, guys. You've got to go read this book and check it out for yourself. I might cover that in another video. And Alcibiades, I believe that's how you pronounce it, he's one of Socrates' friends. He's just crashed the party and he sat down drunk next to Socrates, and he decides to give a speech about how amazing Socrates is. And I'm going to take that up midstream, and without further ado, here it is. All this had already occurred when Athens invaded Potidaea, where we served together and shared the same mess. Now, first, he took the hardships of the campaign much better than I ever did. Much better, in fact, than anyone in the whole army. When we were cut off from our supplies, as often happens in the field, no one else stood up to hunger as well as he did. And yet he was the one man who could really enjoy a feast. And though he didn't much want to drink when he had to, he could drink the best of us under the table. Still, and most amazingly, no one ever saw him drunk, as we'll straight away put to the test. Add to this his amazing resistance to the cold, and let me tell you, the winter there is something awful. Once I remember it was frightfully cold. No one so much as stuck his nose outside. If we absolutely had to leave our tent, we wrapped ourselves in anything we could lay our hands on and tied extra pieces of felt or sheepskin over our boots. Well, Socrates went out in that weather wearing nothing but this same old light cloak, and even in bare feet. He made better progress on the ice than the other soldiers did in their boots. You should have seen the looks they gave him. They thought he was only doing it to spite them. So much for that, but you should hear what else he did during that same campaign. The exploit our strong-hearted hero dared to do. One day, at dawn, he started thinking about some problem or other. He just stood outside trying to figure it out. He couldn't resolve it, but he wouldn't give up. He simply stood there, glued to the same spot. By midday, many soldiers had seen him, and quite mystified, they told everyone that Socrates had been standing there all day, thinking about something. He was still there when evening came, and after dinner some Ionians moved their bedding outside where it was cooler and more comfortable. All this took place in the summer, but mainly in order to watch if Socrates was going to stay out there all night. And so he did. He stood on the very same spot until dawn. He only left next morning when the sun came out and he made his prayers to the new day. And if you would like to know what he was like in battle, this is a tribute he really deserves. You know that I was decorated for bravery during that campaign. Well, during that very battle, Socrates single-handedly saved my life. He absolutely did. He just refused to leave me behind when I was wounded, and he rescued not only me, but my armor as well. For my part, Socrates, I told them right then that the decoration really belonged to you, and you can blame me neither for doing so then nor for saying so now. But the generals, who seemed much more concerned with my social position, insisted on giving the decoration to me, and I must say, you were more eager than the generals themselves for me to have it. You should have also seen him in our horrible retreat from Delium. I was there with the cavalry, while Socrates was a foot soldier. The army had already dispersed in all directions, and Socrates was retreating together with Laches. I happened to see them just by chance, and the moment I did, I started shouting encouragements to them, telling them I was never going to leave their side, and so on. That day, I had a better opportunity to watch Socrates than I ever had at Potidaea, for being on horseback, I wasn't in very great danger. Well, it was easy to see that he was remarkably more collected than Laches, but when I looked again, I couldn't get your words, Aristophanes, out of my mind. In the midst of the battle, he was making his way exactly as he does around town, with swaggering gait and roving eye. He was observing everything quite calmly, looking out for friendly troops and keeping an eye on the enemy. Even from a great distance, it was obvious that this was a very brave man, who would put up a terrific fight if anyone approached him. This is what saved both of them. For as a rule, you try to put as much distance as you can between yourself and such men in battle. You go after the others who run away helter-skelter. You could say many other marvellous things in praise of Socrates. Perhaps he shares some of his specific accomplishments with others, but as a whole he is unique. He's like no one else in the past and no one in the present. This is by far the most amazing thing about him, for we might be able to form an idea of what Achilles was like by comparing him to Brasidas or some other great warrior, or we might compare Pericles with Nestor or Antenor or one of the other great orators. There is a parallel for everyone else, that is. But this man here is so bizarre, his ways and his ideas are so unusual that search as you might, you'll never find anyone else alive or dead who is even remotely like him. The best you can do is not to compare him to anything human, but to liken him, as I do, to Silenus and the satyrs. And the same goes for his ideas and arguments. Guys, that's the end of the reading. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a little bit more about how incredible Socrates was. And please hit like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I'll see you in the next video.